Here in Afghanistan. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us this morning at this early hour. Before we get your reaction, I want to take you to a clip here. This was the president speaking about the possibility of a Taliban takeover, which at the point on July 8th, he doubted that was a possibility. Take a listen.
The Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped as any army in the world. The likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
Congressman, I want to ask you, in your estimation, how did we get this execution of the U.S. troop withdrawal so wrong? And what is more stunning? Is it these appearing to be a lack of execution for this withdrawal, or what appears to be total surprise and shock by what's happened within the Biden administration?
You know, it's absolutely been a failure to appreciate what the situation on the ground is and how quickly it can change the underlying assumptions behind our planning. I think the assumption had been that we would have 6 to 9 months, that the Afghan government would stay in place, that there would be military forces fighting. Clearly, they collapsed within a matter of days. The entirety of the Biden administration strategy was predicated on having that window of time to complete this military withdrawal. And we didn't even get to the beginning of that withdrawal until the Taliban were in the presidential palace. So at every stage, we have underestimated the Taliban, overestimated the Afghan government. And what we are seeing right now is the consequences of that failure to appreciate the magnitude of the situation.
America's top general, General Mark Milley, he was on a phone call with senators yesterday, and he said that the terror threat could rise here in the United States because of this. He said, quote, let's read it here, terrorist groups like al-Qaeda could reconstitute in Afghanistan sooner than the 2-year defense officials had previously estimated to Congress because of the recent rapid Taliban takeover in the country. And, you know, Congressman, we have no bases in the region. Taliban took over Bagram airfield. So without an intelligence presence there or a military presence there, how will we know if terror groups start to plot attacks against the United States?
That's obviously a significant concern, especially in the short term, especially given the rapid advances the Taliban have made and just the complete incapability of our understanding what's actually going on. If we didn't even detect among mid-level and regional leadership among the Afghan government that they were ready to fold it in and ready to make their own concessions, if we couldn't even detect that, how are we going to be able to ensure that any future plots emanating from that region are stopped? How are we going to ensure that we still have a finger on the pulse? I mean, this is the type of concerns that we had been told were being addressed. There were conversations in the months leading up to this of many members of Congress asking those very same questions and being given assurances that right now were clearly false, were not based on an accurate understanding of the situation. And again, it led us to the failure that we're seeing here today.
Look, there are a number of people, and there's no denying that people all across this country were in support of troop withdrawal from Afghanistan. And that includes Democrats and Republicans. That obviously includes our former president, President Trump, who started this whole conversation and really amped up the conversation, if you will. However, that being said, it is on President Joe Biden, who is in office right now, who ultimately takes responsibility for this execution or this lack of execution. And it begs the question, you know, why do you think there wasn't a plan in place, or at least there appears there wasn't a plan in place for Americans in that area, for Afghan translators, for those who have worked so closely with us, for women, for children, for men, innocent people, to ensure their safety? And for those who are still there, can we even do that at this point?
That is the number one question. I mean, there's obviously going to be plenty of time for accountability. Right now, we have to make sure that we secure the airfield at Kabul Airport, right? And there are apparently gunfights breaking out there. There are tens of thousands of Afghans on the runway. We need to make sure that we're getting folks out as quickly as possible. The issue of Afghans who supported the U.S. forces, these were questions that we raised in April, that we were encouraging the Biden administration not to wait, to make this go fast in order to stop planning and actually start acting. And what we saw the chaos that we've seen over the past few hours is what happens when you make the assumption that you always have more time, rather than doing what you can, letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, focusing on the bureaucracy and the process rather than on the swift action. And that's why we need to focus on moving fast now.
Congressman, so what do you think the policy is going to be going forward? Do you think that there could be an appetite in Congress to send troops back into the region as a long-standing stabilizing force?
I think we're going to have to see what tomorrow holds. Again, I was supportive of the withdrawal. The execution of that withdrawal has been an embarrassment to this country. We are dealing with 1975 Saigon right now, trying to avoid 1979 Tehran. What happens in the next few hours and the next few days is going to determine the next few weeks and the next few months. But it's clear that this was botched on the assumptions. It's clear that we have had a cascading series of intelligence and operational and strategic failures that led us to this point. And at this point, we need to be doing everything we can to protect American lives and also ensure that we do not abandon those who served American forces.
Yeah, it's just so devastating watching the scenes play out. And I know there are a lot of people who would like to hear from our president, so we will stay tuned. We were told that would happen in the next few days. Hopefully that gets pushed up. Yeah. We'll see. In the meantime, real quick before we let you go, want to get your opinion on this. The president has authorized the U.S. response to Haiti after that devastating earthquake there. And we'll go ahead and pull up this quote. And this reads, "We are supporting efforts to assess the damage and assist efforts to recover those who were injured and those who must now rebuild. The United States remains a close and enduring friend to the people of Haiti." I mean, this was a 7.2 magnitude. So far, nearly 1,300 people are confirmed dead. Nearly 6,000 have been injured. And that's just what we know right now. What is your reaction?
I think it's obviously horrific what we've seen happen in Haiti. I mean, it's a testament to the magnitude of what we're dealing with in Afghanistan, that over 1,000 people dying in a natural disaster just a few 100 miles from our shores can be so quickly forgotten. But obviously that is going to be a long-term humanitarian mission in addition to the unfolding and deepening political crisis within Haiti. So obviously we need to be this is why we need to be engaged, and we need to focus on doing everything we can in the moment to alleviate pain and suffering. But Afghanistan is a tinderbox. Haiti as well. It's a dangerous, dangerous start.
Yeah. All right, Congressman Meyer, thank you so much for joining us.